I once got a piece of advice that completely changed the way I hired and managed salespeople for the companies I've had. If you're also tired of wasting time and money looking for salespeople who aren't the right fit for your business, this can really help you. Not everyone has the budget to hire and pay the top salespeople in their industry. If you're in that position, good for you. This advice isn't for you. But if you're not in that position yet, then listen carefully, because this one thing can turn an inexperienced salesperson into someone who can close deals immediately or instantly improve a salesperson's performance. This is the very reason why I hired someone with no previous sales experience at my previous company, and she immediately tripled our sales. At the beginning, a common problem for many companies is that the founder is the best salesperson and gets stuck doing sales instead of focusing on running and growing the business. But even without considering the business owner and focusing solely on the salespeople, you'll see people receiving the same training and using the same script, but achieving completely different results. Of course, there are other variables involved, like a natural talent for selling, the way someone talks, their hunger for success, and so on. But the advice that really made me think is this. It's all about how much the salesperson believes that the product or service they're selling can solve the client's problem. But wait, before you think it's just a trivial point, let me explain it the way it was explained to me, because it will blow your mind. Let me prove it to you. Imagine you have something to sell, and you approach a prospect. You give your sales pitch, but they're hesitant and don't immediately agree. They say they're not interested. If you knew that your product could genuinely help them with their problem, how far would you go to convince them? When I asked you this question, you probably already had an idea of how persuasive you'd be before giving up if they kept saying no, right? Now, here's the interesting part. Imagine you could go back in time and meet your past self from a few years ago. Your past self can't recognize you. They don't know it's you, and you cannot tell them you're the same person. Or that would create a space-time disaster, like in the best time travel movies. You need to convince your past self to play a specific set of lottery numbers on a specific date, because coming from the future, you know those numbers will win a billion-dollar jackpot. Let's put aside the ethical question of whether this is right or wrong. The focus here is on the belief about what you are offering and how you persuade someone else. But, as in all movies, this is not so simple. Your past self doesn't believe you and doesn't care about what you're saying. You realize he won't do it. So if you were 100% certain that playing those lottery numbers would change your past self's life, and consequently, your own life, how far would you go to convince him? Take a moment to think about it. I imagine you wouldn't have any limits in insisting until he listened and played those famous lottery numbers on the specified day, right? I assure you that one way or another, you would persuade him and wouldn't let anything stop you. Now, the point here is not that you have to play the lottery to get rich, or that you have to push forward like a tank to be a good salesperson. The point is that when you are 100% sure that what you're telling him will improve his life, you'll find resources you didn't even know you had to persuade him. Let's relate this to selling a product or service. You or the salesperson have a certain belief in how much this product or service can help the customer. It's not a matter of being a binary choice between, yes, I'm convinced, or no, I'm not convinced. It's a gradual scale of how convinced you are. Are you slightly convinced, somewhat convinced, very convinced, or absolutely sure that your product or service can help the customer if they buy it? The level of conviction can be perceived by the prospect, and it will influence their decision. It will also affect how you handle the sale and objections. We could say that sales are about transferring to the prospect your belief that your product or service will solve their problem. When the prospects realize this, they buy and become customers. Knowing this, as entrepreneurs, we can use this to our advantage by working to increase our salespeople's belief in the certainty that the product or service they're selling will help the customer. How can we do that? I've used 3 ways. 1. Recruit salespeople from your satisfied customers. For example, the inexperienced girl I mentioned at the beginning became a great salesperson because she was a customer who had achieved great results with the nutritional program we were selling. She was so enthusiastic that customers could feel her excitement, and they bought even though she wasn't yet skilled in sales techniques. 2. Have salespeople try the product themselves and experience its benefits. This applies not only to internal salespeople, but also to affiliates, resellers, and external promoters. With them, instead of giving the product for free, have them purchase and use it themselves. When they experience good results, they're more likely to recommend it to others. 3. Share customer success stories with your salespeople regularly. Salespeople often encounter objections and sometimes deal with difficult or unhappy customers who, even if they're a small minority, can have a heavier impact on your salespeople than the satisfied ones. Even the most well-intentioned salesperson can be influenced by this negativity and start doubting the product. Therefore, you must continually reinforce the belief that they are offering something valuable and helpful by sharing customer success stories. So, if you start with people who have a high belief in what they're offering, and at the same time train them to become better salespeople, you're much more likely to get good salespeople who can actually close deals. And there's one more thing you can do as an entrepreneur to make selling even easier for your salespeople. You can set up your brand and your business in a way that attracts the right leads to sell to. I talk about this in this video here.